This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Florida State football, ACC Nation's preview of the Florida State Seminoles with Kurt Weiler with SB Nation's Tomahawk Nation, an editor at Field Level Media. Welcome, Kurt. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Always a pleasure. I always know when I'm coming on to do this that football is right around the corner, and that's a good thing. So happy to be here.
Football is here.
I suppose it is. I mean, I haven't covered a game or been to a game yet, but it is. You're right. I mean, no week zero this year, no Ireland this year, but we make do.
Yeah. Hey, Ireland is never a bad thing, no matter what. So, that's Will Ojanen, and I'm Jim Quist, and let's get into talking about the Noles and find out what's going on down in Tallahassee. There's a huge game coming up right out of the gate. Man, oh man, lots to talk about. Will, take her away.
All right, Kurt, good to chat with you. And a lot of talk for a team that's coming off a 2-10 season. There's a lot of new to this program. And so before we get into breaking it down, let me just someone from the outside, what was covering last season like?
Stunning, miserable. I pat myself on the back a little for how many I was able to write a unique column after every game, considering a lot of the games that pretty much the entire season were quite similar. It was just, it was watching the same game every week in a lot of ways. And I was able to find the unique angles, but it was by the end of September, I think all of us on the beat were kind of just like ready for it to be over so we could get ahead to, basketball season, but then really to talk about the 2025 season, to seeing what Mike Norvell would do to overhaul everything, how serious the changes would be, and build towards trying to salvage this, which is going to be no easy task.
Definitely, and as you mentioned, a lot of overhaul. He brought in Gus Malzahn to run the offense, and then the big name out of the portal, Tommy Castellanos, and feel like that's a perfect marriage right there with those two.
They like Tommy signed with Gus at UCF out of high school and only left because he felt ready to go be a starter, and that wasn't going to be an opportunity immediately at UCF. I think you look at Gus's track record. A lot of his best teams have had that quarterback mobility, and that is certainly Tommy's strength and what he really brings. And I think what frankly was really missing on last year's team, amongst many other things.
Before we get into the other skill positions, let's address the elephant in the room at that offensive line. Nobody could run through that offensive line. How have they addressed that?
They brought in 4 transfers in the December portal window who were rolled in January. They have a 5th transfer who transferred in last year, was injured early in the year, didn't play a lot in Richie Leonard. They brought in 2 more transfers over the summer. I'm not sure those 2 are especially in the mix right away. They're younger, maybe more future. But the fact is, I think they had a new offensive line coach, obviously. Alex Atkins now coaching tight ends at LSU, not even allowed to coach the same position he was here for quite a while, which sure is something. And they bring in Herb Hand, who is with Gus Malzahn at UCF, has been with Gus Malzahn at Auburn, has that track record. They have that kind of, and I think they put a real emphasis on. It's not where you want to be in year 6 for Mike Norvell, but bringing in quite a bit of experience. Really across the board, it felt like they adjusted to a lot of the ads last year through the portal were potential ads. I think this year it's experienced ads. You're talking about an all-ACC offensive lineman at Wake Forest, and Luke Pettibone, who's going to be their center. 2 guys who've played SEC football at Vandy and Ole Miss to be their tackles. A UCF transfer who played for Gus and Herb, and Adrian Medley is one of the guards. You figure out the other spot, but they brought in, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 4 guys who've played a lot of Power 4 football, a lot of games, a lot of starts, a lot of snaps. And the truth is, last year's line had experience, but I think it was pretty wild how badly everyone misjudged that line. And I mean, it was pretty quickly evident how much of a problem that was. But the funny thing is, I'm not sure it's the biggest problem in the offense. I mean, that is a real, like, I have no idea what to pick because it was pretty much all bad almost.
The running back, I mean, this Toafili's gone, but they bring a couple guys. There's a couple guys that are back with Roydell Williams, Cam Davis. Plus, they brought in another back from the portal. Who is there? It's going to be a committee with them.
Yes, but a smaller committee than I think it's been the last few years. I think David Johnson, the running backs coach, said a few weeks ago they're looking at more two or three guys they're relying on heavily. That is a lower number than they have the last few years when Mike Norvell was running the offense. I think, yeah, I mean, I think you expect Roydell Williams to be in the mix there to a degree. The second year Alabama transfer. I think the fact is there were times where they didn't help, but like we just talked about, the running backs were not the problem last year with the run game. They weren't a problem why the run game didn't get going. I think Roydell's in the mix. I wonder how Cam Davis fits in that mix. I mean, a guy like Keziah Holmes has been a consistent contender and contributor, but you wonder how he fits in that mix, especially if the rotation's shrinking. But I think two guys who I'm looking at as maybe the top two right now are the Oklahoma transfer Gavin Sawchuk, who had a great game against Florida State 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago in the time flies in the Cheez-It Bowl when he was with the Sooners and played Florida State in that game. And frankly, a freshman Usman Kroma, they flipped from Georgia last December during the early signing period, and I think we wondered if he could be an instant impact guy. Was a very productive running back in high school, looks the part physically, kind of looked ready physically, but wasn't able to early enroll, only arrived over the summer. But all you've heard about him has been how willing he is as a blocker, his ability with the ball in his hands, how he does everything well. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he against Alabama is getting thrown into pretty significant playing time because the buzz has been great for him.
The receiver position got a bit of an overhaul, mostly due to graduation. Brought in Deuce Robinson, who's been a big figure at practice. Squirrel White's a name to know. All in all, is this a better receiver room than last year?
It's more proven. I have questions about the depth. I know, I mean, Deuce missed a little time in the spring, but he's been back this preseason. Squirrel missed a little time in the spring and has missed a little time in this preseason. I think he was hurt last year and kind of a lot of what he was going through in the spring was recovering from that fully. But I think with those guys, if they're healthy, I mean, you look at who they brought in transfer wise last year, it's a totally different world of like guys who've proven they can have very productive seasons. I mean, Squirrel had 1,600 plus yards over 3 years at Tennessee, a really lethal slot type guy. And I think Deuce is very much, I mean, I'm by no means saying Deuce is slow. He's not. But he is the big bodied kind of contested catch guy they didn't have last year. Last year, they tried to build that whole room around speed, and it didn't work for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which is a lot of guys struggle to catch the ball. Deuce and Squirrel, both very proven catchers over their careers. Gavin Blackwell was a third transfer they brought in from UNC, who's, I think, a guy who maybe a little less experienced than those other two, but a veteran who I think brings a lot to that room and is an option for them. And then, I mean, it comes down to, I think, another freshman you've heard a lot about is Javen Boggs. I mean, he was Florida Mr. Football 2 years ago. I think set Florida's all-time receiving yards record, which you think about all the receivers who come through that state all time, and that says something if you're setting a Florida like high school association record. That's pretty ridiculous. I think he is not maybe the freakiest athlete, is not a guy who you look at as like he does one thing really well, but is just really rounded all around, does everything pretty well, especially for a freshman. I think he's a guy who's gonna play right well, maybe even also start against Alabama.
Switching over to the defense, and obviously the overall continue with a new defensive coordinator, brought in Tony White, who I thought was one of the biggest coordinator hires of the offseason. So what's going to change schematically for the Florida State defense?
I think Tony White has obviously it's got to show up on the field for it to matter. But Tony White this offseason has just said all the right things of what people were frustrated about for Adam Fuller's 5 years as defensive coordinator under Mike Norvell. I mean, he's talked from the start, from his opening press conference, talked about, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to be physical. I think those were two real complaints at times about Adam Fuller's play calling was not aggressive enough, not enough blitzing, maybe a little too vanilla. And there were absolutely times, especially last year, where the lack of wanting to be physical was so clear. I mean, Tony White has made it clear all season. I think another thing Tony White has said is, like, guys, if you are not living up to what your expectations were, if you're not doing what we expected of you in scrimmages, you're going to get passed over. And I think that's another complaint of the last few years of, like, I think guys holding on to spots maybe a little longer than they should have when they weren't performing. It's a unique defense for sure in that it's a 3-3-5 base. But every time you kind of ask about that, Tony's always very particular about talking about, yes, but it's a multiple defense. It's like he doesn't want it to kind of be lumped into being solely a 3-3-5. I think the big thing with his defense and what you've heard and what we've seen in the limited practice we've been able to watch is that it is a defense that's going to be unpredictable, that, like, you never know where the pressure is going to be coming from. It can look like it's coming from here and actually come from a totally different spot. It is trying to discombobulate quarterbacks with how it's switching things up and how it's disguising things. And I think Tony White's excited for, he's never he talked about it, like, I've never gotten to run this defense in such a talent rich state, as Florida. He's been at Nebraska, he's been at Syracuse, he's been at San Diego State. He played at UCLA, so I think he's excited. We'll see how many year a thing this is for him here. I think he wants to be a head coach. Obviously, hasn't reached that pinnacle yet, but I think he's excited about what he can do with Florida talent here that he's never had access to as easily.
Yeah, so the line, it seems set in the middle, a little bit of question outside, but one of the names that intrigued me was James Williams, who they pulled in from Nebraska, a guy who had 5 sacks but only had 14 tackles last season. So it feels like he's going to be the guy they're going to just stick at the quarterback.
Yeah, he at Nebraska, he's got a fascinating story where he was a guy who I think didn't have offers out of high school, went JUCO. I think just happened to show up at like a Nebraska camp, and they saw him, and he got an offer to walk on. This is his first time ever actually on scholarship. He was a walk on 2 years at Nebraska. He was mostly with the depth they had, a third down like pass rush specialist at Nebraska. That's kind of why those numbers skew the way they do. And they've really challenged him this offseason they lost 3 starters off last year's line. Darrell Jackson, the only guy they're bringing back in the middle. So they really challenged James with, like, knowing the defense coming from Nebraska with Tony and with Terrence Knighton, the new defensive line coach, with being a leader and with being the guy who, like, let people come to you if they have questions because you know the defense, and be that vocal example even though you're new. And they've also really challenged him with being an every down player because, like you said, I think he is expected to be a starter, expected to play a lot more snaps than he did at Nebraska as a every down player instead of kind of a pass rush specialist. And I think the buzz about him has been pretty good this offseason about how he's taken to that.
Linebackers, a little bit of a question mark. They did bring them some guys in the portal. There's some depth behind them. So what do we need to know about this linebacking group?
Yeah, I think they bring guys back like a Justin Cryer, like a Stephen Dix Jr. who briefly entered the portal, decided to return, which I think was a big deal considering he was a guy who came into his own last year. And so I think that's Omar Graham Jr. Wrong FSU linebacker. Omar Graham Jr. Stephen Dix was gone a while ago. Omar Graham Jr. was originally going to leave, decided to come back, which is great because he really came into his own last year. And yeah, they brought in, I think, 3 transfers in that unit as well. You're sensing a theme here, and it's guys who've played a lot of ball. Some of them have experience in this system or similar systems. I'm curious to see how the depth shakes out there because I think the roles for the linebackers definitely change a bit now in this 3-3-5 instead of kind of the 4-2-5 we've seen Florida State be in.
The secondary wise, this is a spot where they didn't really attack with the portal too much, even though with some losses, it feels like they just really like what they had at that position then.
Yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that is the position they felt the best about with what they had coming back, even though they're losing Azareye'h Thomas, even though they're losing Fentrell Cypress to the NFL. I think it's certainly a situation where they've developed talent there. I think that's a tip the cap to Pat Surtain. They've acquired talent and they've retained talent. They added one. I don't think they didn't add any DBs in the December window. They added one post spring, Jeremiah Johnson, a Florida kid who signed with Tony White originally at Syracuse out of high school, was a breakout player last year at Houston, where I think he had 4 picks, quite a few pass breakups. His coverage grades and all that were exceptional from PFF, and I think you've heard about him and the difference he's made as a trendsetter of like the work expectations this offseason. He's a guy they say he's in the building every morning at 5:30. And but you pair that with, I mean, he's expected to be a starting corner. You pair that with the depth they've built with guys like Charles Lester, with guys like Jabril Rawls, with Quindarius Jones, quite a few guys. I mean, it's they've built the depth there. Safety, I think, is a real question, because I think they had 2 guys returning who've played quite a bit, and Conrad Hussey and Shyheim Brown. Conrad's no longer with the team. He left during preseason camp. And Shyheim, you just haven't heard the most rave reviews about. So I think it's interesting how that position shakes out. I think the guy who's expected to play the rover role, Earl Little Jr., you have heard a lot about, and it's been great stuff about him finally being healthy and what that can do for him come into his own and in a role that seems to really fit his skill set.
Kurt, you mentioned just a moment ago about the limitations on access to practice. Is that normal? Is that something over the years that Mike Norvell's been doing, or is that more recent?
Oh, this has been a hard pivot this offseason from Mike being, I mean, I have to imagine the most accessible, like open practices and all, Power 4 coach, I think. Like Florida State, like we got to watch every preseason practice in their entirety except for scrimmages. We got to watch 2 practices every game week in their entirety. I mean, it's stuff that you hear about from like the 90s and the pre-social media age about like how access used to be, and no one's that way nowadays. And for whatever reason, I think there are theories, and it's understandable that you're going to want to change some things up after what they just went through. We got to watch one entire scrimmage in the spring, which was new. We'd never done that. It was cool, but that's it for the spring. And we got one like 10, 15, 20-minute viewing period in the first preseason practices. And that's been all the practice we've seen. So it's tough. I mean, this was a team we had a lot of questions about, and that very much still remains the case, because like all you can base it off of is the conversations you have with people. And the problem with that is you always got to take that with a grain of salt. You can never take what you're hearing from coaches, staff members, even like high school coaches out there at face value, because you got to realize where they might be coming from it. So I think the fact is a lot of questions still remain.
So
we normally know a little more about this team this time of year.
You mentioned theories. Which one holds more sway with you?
What do you mean?
And where you said theories in regard to Norvell.
Oh, I mean, I think the case can be made that he felt it's a silly argument to make if he felt that like we had any responsibility in the 2-10, because we got to watch just many practices as the 2 years before when they went 23-4 over those 2 years. I mean, we were out there twice a week during the 13-0 regular season and the playoff snub year. I mean, so I don't think if that's it, I'm kind of questioning that, raise my eyebrow at that a little. Gus Malzahn is not as accessible historically at Auburn, at UCF. I wonder if him showing up and they go way back. I wonder if him showing up and they talked candidly about like, I think you should do this, and he's taken Gus's involvement with the offense. I wonder if he kind of took Gus's advice a little with the media side. I definitely don't think it helped that Gus showed up here.
Oh, okay. It's funny that this subject is brought up, because we've heard that not only from this camp but several others, that there seems to be this growing trend about limiting access or almost precluding people from getting a look at, reporting on, etc. And I'm not really sure that that's advantageous long term. It certainly doesn't help you or anybody.
No, well, and my thing is too, like, however confident he is about this team, closing practice when it's always been open doesn't project confidence, doesn't project outwardly confidence. You can be confident. Projection isn't reality, but like it looks optically not great that like coming off of that season when you're on the hot seat for really the first time. I mean, and you were just so great to make such a sweeping change and go to kind of the other end of the spectrum. It just isn't. It isn't a great look. I will say for Mike, in defense of him, he remains very open with letting us talk to people. I mean, true freshmen are on the table. We talk to every freshman when they arrive. Like interview wise, he is still very accessible. We talk to all the coordinators during the preseason. That's great, but that's only half of the picture.
Exactly. And we could go into detail about this, but I won't do that. I won't put you on a hot seat either. So, but I hope that changes back into a little more realistic stance and helps out all the folks who are covering Florida State and some of the other schools, of course, that we've talked to. How was this overall? And this is sort of an overarching question that I'm really asking everybody, and I'm getting some really interesting answers, pretty much all along the same avenue, but slightly different tilts. How NIL, the money aspect, and the transfer portal are really playing an impact on teams at this point. Have you noticed a significant difference, let's say, from 3 years ago to today?
I mean, Florida State's such a unique case there because I think Florida State was largely portal built. You look at a lot of leaders on that 2023 great team. A lot of them were portal guys, not all, but a lot. Mike Norvell was kind of the original portal king for my money. I mean, he took a portal team higher than they've ever gone. I mean, that they should have been in the playoff, and that would have been the first team like that was so much, I think, built through the portal to reach those heights if they had been there. Mm-hmm. And so, like, by that notion, you can say, like, they managed it well. But then last year, similarly portal built, and, like, you just, like, for a season to go that far off the rails, and I think you saw the effort at times when things were just so bad, and just, like, I mean, that to me, like, there can't be some, like, culture issues without it being that bad. You can't have a great culture and go 2-10 at Florida State for my money. There has to be at least a little of that creeping in. I think they bet on some portal guys they added last year being leaders that were not the leaders they thought. And I think they might have been more mercenaries who, when things started going south, started looking out for themselves, which is the unfortunate, like, side effect of guys who don't have those long-term ties. So I think Florida State is such an interesting example because I think we've seen their culture be great in a portal rebuild, and obviously I think we've seen it really struggle last year. So you kind of don't know what to make of it. I think it shows that you can still have a great culture and you can still have a not great culture in the portal era, relying heavily on that.
Let's get into the schedule and look at what your thoughts are in projecting wins, losses, and go ahead, Will. It's the Will waggle. It's well, not really sure, because when it comes to projecting wins and losses, sometimes, especially early in the season, who knows, right?
I bet you didn't have Stanford losing to Hawaii. Just goes to show.
Well, I could ask you the same question that I asked a previous guest in regard to whether or not you guys have a 7-year player who's in the TikTok on your team. Because if you do,
not that I know of.
Okay, good.
I think Mike Norvell would have actually blitzed the Hawaii quarterback when he was on a gimpy ankle.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some. This is a heck of an opening game on Saturday, August 30th. This is part of the ACC's Labor Day weekend extravaganza. It's Florida State and Alabama. This is going to be a home game in Tallahassee, 3:30 ABC. So it's going to get a lot of exposure. Wow. I didn't know what to think of this game. And in giving a fair shake to Florida State, I I didn't know what to think of this game right up front. It just struck me as being, wow, that's a big splash right up front. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, I mean I mean it's tough. You don't want you it's not a thing you normally say at a place like Florida State or about a program like Florida State, but
Mhm.
it kind of holds true with where they are right now. Winning would be great. It is not necessarily in terms of the season about winning or losing that game. It's about being in the conversation somewhat, not getting blown off the field to show that things are better. Because I mean, it's a top 10 team. It's a new quarterback, but it's a really talented team. It's among the most talented teams in the country. I mean, Kalen DeBoer is a heck of a coach. He's not Nick Saban. He showed that last year with a few head scratching losses, but he is a heck of a coach who's got a heck of a team. Florida State can win the game, but there's a reason why they're basically 2 touchdown underdogs. I mean, they people have to see it to believe it about Florida State after last year, and I have to see it to believe it if I'm being honest. So it's a really to me about I don't even want to say being competitive, but just like looking like you belong somewhat on the same field as that
Right,
team
right.
because they didn't look like they belonged against much worse teams than Bama last year.
I think this is one of these games where I'm honestly, uh, because I'm not overly sold on Alabama being as good as they have been projected. Okay, I'm not totally sold on that. But on the other side of the coin, I don't know where Florida State is either. So for me, this is one of those. I'm like you. I have to see this game and see the performance out of both teams to really have a good idea as to where I think they may be going for the rest of the season. I think if we're going to go with Alabama being one of those top teams in the nation, and Florida State is coming from a place that they shouldn't have been last year. If the Noles can show that they belong on the same field and have a good performance, it will go a long way to reinstilling a lot of confidence in this team. It's just that simple.
Florida State's not a moral lost place. That could very well
I
be
know.
like a moral victory. Like, you know,
I would say to everybody, I know people argue against that wholeheartedly, but when you're talking about the first game of the season, you, you may want to
well, and when you're
rethink
talking
that.
about where Florida State is coming from, where
Yeah,
Alabama's coming from, I mean,
that's
it's
right.
just like, yeah, like, I mean, like, I don't often say that about Florida State. I'm saying that for this one.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we'll see where that one goes. The next game up is Saturday on September 6th, Florida State and East Texas A&M. It's a home game, 12 o'clock, ACC Network. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
That's a thumbs up. That'll
Don't
be however Bama goes. That'll be that'll be the win.
don't give me a wiggle waggle on that.
Mhm.
If they
All
lose
right.
that game, oh boy.
Right after that is a bye week, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I think that the double buys in the ACC is confusing to me this season. First game out of that bye is Saturday, September 20th. It's Florida State and Kent State. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
The thumbs up. I mean, that's a strong case for being the worst FBS team.
Yeah. All right. That was a fairly easy one. On Friday, September 26th, Florida State goes to Charlottesville. They're going to take on Virginia. That game is already scheduled for ESPN, 7 p.m. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Um, I mean, it's interesting to put that as the in the middle, but I think that has to be where it is right now. I think the fact is you don't if you're Florida State, if you're Mike Norvell, you don't have to win the Bama game. But if you don't win the Bama game, you had better not lose that one and be 2-2 coming out of September because it
Yeah.
would be Florida State remains again. Last year's sort of talent isn't everything, but Florida State remains a more talented team than Virginia, even the state they're in. And so, I mean, they need to go play like it. I mean, I think Virginia is going to be better. I think I projected them. I think to make a bowl at 6-6, they could give Florida State a game. The Friday night road game coming off when you play the Saturday before is always a bit weird, but that's a they'd better. That's so they better because it starts getting like iffy if they don't.
Yeah. And the schedule starts to get a little hairier here too. On Saturday, October 4th, Florida State, Miami. That's a home game.
It is. Uh, I'm intrigued. I Carson Beck to me is the I need to see it. We've seen the ability, but
Yeah.
he was surrounded by good talent at Georgia and still, like, still had his struggles. So he's going to similarly be surrounded with great talent. We've heard the raid reviews, but I mean, they have a few tough games. They play what, Notre Dame and Florida in that first month before Florida
Yeah.
State. So I think we'll know a decent amount about Miami. And I think by then we'll have a decent idea of how much of a shot Florida State has. I'm skeptical, but who knows?
I'm a big believer that you wait until week 3 before you start putting people in the top 25 because you don't know. You really don't have any clue. So maybe by then we'll have a good idea what we're dealing with. On Saturday, October 11th, Florida State takes on Pitt, another home game. This is advantageous for Florida State so far. Looks good. It puts them in a good position, hopefully to defend and come away with a win. What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I lean up. It's not a full thumbs up, but it's probably slanting up.
That's a new
It's
one.
like this one.
A slant up. Okay.
There's 5, right? Up, slant up, middle,
Yeah,
slant down, down.
Oh boy, I'm stealing those signals for whatever they're for. Saturday, October 18th, going out to the West Coast, taking on Stanford. That's a 10:30, one of those late night games on ESPN. This should be interesting. It's again a projection. I'm not 100% sure that Stanford should be judged on that game the other night, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and whether they should, I think it's possible they can simultaneously be better than that going forward. And I mean, I still think they're projected to finish last in the ACC for
Yeah.
a reason. I mean, it's not a great roster. They lost their head coach when February or March or April. When did that happen with Frank Reich getting installed as interim? And I mean, he's staying the interim where he said so. Like, there should be a thumbs up. There's a lot of variables to it. I mean, the West Coast of it all is hard. The mental clocks of it all, the body clocks of it all, will be challenging in a way. But it should be a win. It's another, like, if this is going to be the season they need it to be, it should be a win.
Okay. Bye after that, which is a good thing. Saturday, November 1st, it's another home game. Florida State is going to be entertaining Wake Forest.
It should be a thumbs up.
Okay. Next game up is Saturday, November 8th, and it's going to be at Clemson. Always a challenge.
That to me is probably the least likely win on your schedule as I'm projecting things now. I think it's that or it's who is it, that or Bama or Miami? I don't know, but I think I lean that. I think Clemson's going to be quite good this year.
All right. Saturday, I believe it's the 15th, Florida State and Virginia Tech, another home game. The Hokies come to Tallahassee.
I would say it's. I mean, frankly, and I don't like saying this, but we'll see if Kyron Jones is still playing because he's just been always a bit banged up. He's just a guy who can't stay healthy. If he is, he's a dynamic playmaker when he's going good. He almost pulled off that upset against Miami last year. So I think I would probably put that like a slanting up because you're at home, but it's by no means a gimme or a game I feel like 100% about.
Okay. That's a fair assessment, and you're right about drones. If he's still standing, could be a challenge. Friday, November 21st, it is NC State, and you travel to Raleigh for that. Folks at ESPN thought this was worthy of TV time this early in the season, 8 p.m. on ESPN.
Because it's a Friday night. Yeah,
That's
they
right.
often those are going to be at night, but that is not a place that Florida State has played well historically. I mean, during Mike Norvell's tenure, before Mike Norvell's tenure, I mean, I think the fan base, I'm sure, still has nightmares at times about that 2012 game when they were the number 1 team in the country and lost up there. I would say, I mean, to me, when you factor in the road of it all, I don't know what I think of that team. I'm not sure I think that team's that good, but just that has been a house of horrors. I'm putting that middle, maybe a little like trending down of like where I think that is for Florida State.
Okay. And again, keep this in mind. These are projections. We,
Yep.
we haven't actually seen games being played. So this is a fun exercise. On Saturday, November 29th, it's Florida. This should be an entertaining game. Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean I don't think I feel great about Florida State, but that's the ultimate like I think last year we this time last year we thought Florida State would probably roll in that game, and I wondered. I probably said on podcast and was proven total old takes exposed to the end of the earth. That I didn't think Billy Napier might still be the coach at that point. I mean, he was so on the hot seat, and it didn't start well, and then right when things were really going bad, he turned it around and has them rolling now as a preseason top 15, top 20 team wherever they are, and I think vibes are obviously much higher there now, but that is a total reversal from 12 months ago. So I'm fascinated, but obviously the buzz is behind Florida right now, big time, and DJ Lagway is a heck of a player.
Yeah.
And he has a history of injury too, so
He
who
does.
knows?
Well, and he's had a weird offseason with like he didn't want to throw in the spring, but the Billy didn't want to talk about it. And like he had another thing. I think he dealt with a calf injury that kept him out early this preseason. I think if he's not out there, it drastically changes that team. I think their backup situation is pretty rough. But if he's out there, he's a heck of a player.
Yeah, Kurt. Hey, you don't have to worry about any of the things that you said in the past with us. I always make sure that I get rid of that stuff across the internet. You know, I make sure I got your back, man. So
Appreciate it.
yeah, I think it goes two ways with us as well. So, you know, there is a dynamic in sports media. And I just want to sort of feel you out a little bit here. We've got a lot of friends across sports media, as do you. Things continue to change. You know, companies are coming together, merging, or going out of business, or whatever. And we're seeing our friends, such as you, moving from one place to another. And you know, you care to share your feelings about that? Because I look at some incredibly talented people. You're one of them. That I sit back and I kind of worry about you guys, to be honest with you. And I've seen some people get out of the business altogether, and I hate that because I think as fans, we're losing out. So, anything you can share from your perspective on that?
There are plenty of reasons why the field is not in a great spot, and I worry about the long term. I mean, I hear companies talk about how they want to use AI more in their writing and things like that, and I hear about cutting positions, or I mean, a merger that put so many people out of jobs that like
Right.
it was only the positive of that was pitched. We didn't like the negative was never addressed because we only wanted the good news,
Right.
right? So and like I mean, we're just not acknowledging the negative side of all that, which affected me and a ton of other people. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I've joked with a few people that I kind of feel I've made it as a sports journalist because I've been like laid off because everyone goes through this. Everyone gets their position eliminated or things like it. It is a weird, messed up rite of passage of sorts that so many people go through this in their careers, and it's almost just an expectation of like it'll happen to you. And I'm grateful that I've found some opportunities to keep involved in a few different things while I'm figuring out what's kind of full time next. But I've certainly dealt with some of the disenfranchisement for a while, and I mean, there's certainly a world where I end up out of it long term just because of the state of things.
Well, we hope that you stick around for a long time covering the Knowles or doing what you and your heart desires. We always enjoy having you on the program and getting your perspective. It's I think very straightforward and an honest one, and you know we appreciate that, and I hope that the fans do as well, and continue to support the outlets that support you. So just want to say that.
I appreciate it, Jim. I always enjoy coming on with you guys.
Same here. The SB Nation's Tomahawk Nation's Kurt Weiler, and he's also the editor at Field Level Media. And we always enjoy having you on, Kurt, and I hope to be talking about some other sports related to Florida State here before long.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Kurt.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.